day, everyone. My topic in this advanced geometry is all about quadrilaterals and statements equivalent to the Euclidean parallel postulates. My name is Kirby Glenn Guido, your reporter for this day. We'll start with the quadrilaterals. In definition, quadrilaterals, we need to let the points. Let A, B, C, and D be 4 points in which now of 3 of these are collinear. For example, here. So we have point A, point B, point C, and point D. Okay? Which 3 points are not in collinear. Okay? So, suppose that any two of the segments, line segment AB, line segment BC, and line segment CD and DE, either have no point in common or have only one endpoint. So for example here, we need to connect the lines, the points here, line segment AB, we have here line segment BC, and we have here line segment CD, and that's the same also with line segment DE, in which they have no point in common. In these line segments, they have no common endpoint. Okay? Or they have only one, or have only an endpoint common. If those conditions are satisfied, then these points, the point A, B, and C, point A, B, C, and D, are determined a quadrilateral, as denoted by this one, quadrilateral A, B, C, D. The quadrilateral is the union of the 4 segments. We have the segment AB, segment BC, segment CD, and segment AB or DA. Okay? So, another one. These 4 segments, line segment AB, line segment BC, line segment CD, and line segment DA are called the sides. So, we'll say these line segments are called the sides of the quadrilateral. And the points A, B, C, D are the vertices of the quadrilateral. So when you say these one are the vertices of the quadrilateral. The sides AB and CD, these sides AB and CD are called as opposite sides of the quadrilateral. The same also with line segment BC and line segment AB. Now, the quadrilateral are congruent if there is a correspondence between their vertices so that all 4 corresponding sides, these sides, okay, are congruent and all 4 corresponding angles are also congruent. Okay? So, 2 quadrilaterals, you mean say you need to compare the 2 quadrilaterals. Next, but note in naming the quadrilateral, the order in which the vertices of the quadrilateral are listed is important. For example, if you list this one, A, B, C, D. It is different when we when you draw like this. Point A, point B, here's the point C, and here's the point D. When we need to connect all these points, for example, here A, B, C, D, you can form a quadrilateral. But here, if you want to draw this quadrilateral A, B, C, D, if you put the points differently, for example, A, B, C, D, it is not a quadrilateral in the form. Okay, so you need to get the order of the vertices, which is important in naming the quadrilateral. Okay, so let's have here an example of the quadrilateral. We have here, this is an example of a quadrilateral. We have A, B, C, D. So the vertices should be consequently listed. And the position of the vertices is important. So, for example, you have here, you write here A, B, C, D. But when you name this one, as you can see, you have here A, C, B, D. It is different when you draw that one. Okay? So, A, B, C, D in this side, this is a quadrilateral, but this one is not. Okay, so the vertices should be important in listing it up. So let's review our definition again. So another definition, 6.7.2, the diagonals of a quadrilateral ABCD are the segments AC and BD. So for example here, we have here these lines, we have to connect these vertices, vertex A and vertex C, we can form a line segment AC. And let's have here another for vertices B and D. We connect that one, you have this line segment DB. Okay? So this line segment AC and line segment BD are the diagonals of our quadrilateral ABCD. So in the definition 6.7.3, a quadrilateral is called a convex if each vertex of a quadrilateral is contained in the interior of the angle formed by the other three vertices in their cycle. So as you can see here, the angle contained is in the interior. So this is a convex quadrilateral. Okay? So for example here in non-convex, okay, this figure, as you can see, this would be a non-convex. It is because here in the vertex B, it is in the outside. The definition 6.73, if a quadrilateral is a convex, if each vertex, so a non-vertex, each vertex of the quadrilateral is contained in the interior of the angle formed by the other three vertices. So we say we have here the three vertices, this angle C or angle B is in the interior, whereas in this figure, as you can see, the angle B is outside of the given vertices A, B, C. Okay, so that's one is an example of a non-convex quadrilateral. Okay, another definition, let's have here. Definition 6.7.4, if the quadrilateral ABCD is a convex quadrilateral, for example this one, okay, so then the angle sum is defined by phi of the quadrilateral ABCD, this angle sum is equal to the mu of angle ABC, this one, angle ABC, this angle, plus the mu of angle BCD, this one, plus the mu of angle CDA, this one, and the other, plus the mu or the measurement of angle DAB. That would be the definition of a convex quadrilateral. Another theorem, let's have here a theorem. If the quadrilateral ABCD is a convex quadrilateral, then the measurement or the sum, the angle sum, is less than or equal to 360 degrees. Okay? So the measurement of this or the angle sum of this angle in a convex quadrilateral is less than or equal to 360 degrees. So don't forget that. Another definition, 6.7.6, the quadrilateral ABCD is a parallelogram if you have to draw this one, point A, point B, point C, point D. If this quadrilateral, as we know, a quadrilateral, we discussed earlier what would be the quadrilateral. Now, let's another here. If the quadrilateral ABC is a parallelogram, we need to satisfy this condition. If this line segment AB, this line segment AB is parallel to line segment CD, and the other side, the line segment AD is also parallel to line segment BC, means say mag-add man sila, okay? That means to say that quadrilateral is a parallelogram. Okay? So when you say what is a parallelogram? So it is parallel. When you say parallel, it will not intersect the two lines. Don't forget that. So when you say this line segment AB and line segment CD are parallel, when you say they will not intersect, okay, continuously as you extend the line. The same also with the line segment AD and BC, which is parallel. Okay. Now let's proceed. Theorem 6.7.7. Every parallelogram is a convex quadrilateral. So meaning to say, as we have here defined what is a parallelogram, now it is a quadrilateral, then we need to satisfy the condition if this quadrilateral is a parallelogram, which is the opposite sides are parallel. Next, this one, parallelogram. Every parallelogram, as here in the tune of 6.7.7, that says it is a convex quadrilateral. So you say you need not to prove it if that would be a quadrilateral, a convex quadrilateral. Okay, let's have here another. Theorem 6.7.8. If triangle ABC is a triangle, D is between A and B, and E is between A and C. Then the parallelogram BCD is a convex quadrilateral. So what does it mean? Let's read this drawing. Okay? So let's have here a drawing of a triangle ABC in which D is between AB. So we say you need to write, or you need to put a point between A, B. Okay? And E, the point E is between AC, or A and C. Then this B, parallelogram B, as you can see, BCED is now a convex quadrilateral. Okay, that is a theorem 6.7.8. So here in the figure, this parallelogram DECB is a convex quadrilateral. So we will say, if you draw a triangle, bigger triangle, then you put another between, okay, another point between the 2 points on the sides of the triangle. So you can draw, or you can have a new figure, which is a quadrilateral, in which it is also a convex. Okay? So, theorem 6.7.9, it says here, the quadrilateral ABCD, this one, is a convex if and only if the diagonals AC, this one, and the diagonals BD have an inferior point in common. So, it will intersect at one point, point E. Let's have here, this one have a diagonals if the diagonals of this quadrilateral is having inferior point or have common point E. That is the figure 6.26. The diagonals line segment AC and line segment BD intersect at the point E. So that would be a convex quadrilateral. Okay? Corollary. Okay. Corollary 6.7.10. If quadrilateral ABCD and quadrilateral ABCD, as you can see, do not be confused with this, because later on you will see the difference of these, are both quadrilaterals. Then the quadrilateral ABCD is not a convex if quadrilateral ABCD is a non-convex quadrilateral, then ABCD is a quadrilateral. What does it mean? So let's have here another figure, a figure for this. Okay, so this would be the first figure. Okay, so as you can see, we have here A, B, C, D, and A. As you can see, if we name this one C, A, D, B, or we have here A, B, C, D. That it's confused. Okay, so are both quadrilaterals? If these are both quadrilaterals, but we don't know, we don't say if this is a convex. Then the quadrilateral ABCD is not a convex. This would be not a convex. This is also not a convex. If the quadrilateral ABCD is a non-convex, so we'll say that not convex, non-convex quadrilateral, then this time, this figure also is called a quadrilateral. Okay? As you can see, diba, kanina yung quadrilateral na sinasabi, it is having a 4 points. Then, so you need to connect it. Then it's having at opposite sides, and you have here the diagonals. Now, here, this is a convex. It is because of having an intersection. Now, in this figure, as you can see, this is also considered as a quadrilateral, but it is a non-convex. This one are the convex. Okay? Let's proceed to the statements equivalent to the Euclidean parallel postulates. Before we go on with this, we need to explain or to prove if this parallel postulate is equivalent to the given statements. Now, Statement of Euclid's proposition number 29. Let's have here. Converse to alternate interior angles theorem. If two parallel lines are cut at transversal, then both pairs of alternate interior angles are congruent. Okay, so that is the converse of the alternate interior angles theorem. Now, let's have here theorem 6.8.1. The converse to the alternate interior angles theorem is equivalent to the Euclidean parallel postulates. Okay, so we need to prove this one, this theorem 6.8.1, in which the converse of the alternate interior angles theorem is equivalent to the Euclid's parallel postulate. Let's have here a proof in the theorem. Okay, so first assume that the converse to the alternate interior angles would be our hypothesis. Let L be a line and let P be an external point. That would be our hypothesis. We must prove that there is exactly one line, M, such that P lies on M, and M is parallel with L. Now, let's have here. Construct a parallel line M and perpendicular transversal using the double perpendicular construction. So we must prove that M is the only such line. Suppose M prime is any line such that P lies on M prime and M prime is parallel with L, okay, or line L. Then P is a transversal for L and M prime. So the angle made by T and the M prime must be equal to the angle made by T and L. Converse the alternate interior angles theorem. So let's have here the drawing. Okay. So you draw a line M in the converse, and we have this one that is transversal with T. Okay. Hence, the M prime is perpendicular with this. M prime is perpendicular with T, and so this line M prime is equal to this line M. So that will be the uniqueness part of protractor postulate part 3. So this would be the word of figure 6.28. So converse the alternate interior angles theorem implies the Euclidean parallel postulates. Okay? So let's proceed. Now, let's assume the Euclidean parallel postulate. That would be the hypothesis. Suppose that the line L and line L prime are parallel lines with transversal P. That will be our hypothesis. Okay? So we must prove that the both pairs of alternate interior angles are congruent. Let B prime denote the point at which P intersects at L prime. Let L double prime or let line L double prime be the line through B prime for which the alternate interior angles formed by line L and line double prime with transversal T are congruent. So this line exists with the protractor postulate part 3. Okay? So by the alternate interior angles theorem, line L double prime is parallel now with line L. The uniqueness part of the Euclidean parallel postulate implies that the line L double prime is equal to line L prime. Hence, the alternate interior angles formed by the line L and the line L prime with transversal 3 are now congruent. Okay, so let's have here this figure. Okay, so this would be the figure 6.29, in which this would be the Euclidean parallel postulate implies the converse of the alternate interior angles theorem. So as you can see, we have here the figure. Okay, now let's have here the Euclid's postulate number 5, or Euclid postulates 5. If line L and line L prime are two lines cut by a transversal T in such a way that the sum of the measures of the two interior angles on one side of T is less than 180 degrees, then the line L and L prime intersect on that side of T. Another theorem 6.8.2 of this Euclid's postulate number 5. So Euclid's postulate number 5, postulate 5, is equivalent to the Euclidean parallel postulate. So each statement is, we need to prove the equivalence of the Euclidean parallel postulates. So let's have here the figure. Okay, this will be the Euclid's postulate 5 in this figure. Okay? So, here, figure 6.30, the Euclidean parallel postulate implies the Euclid's postulate number 5. Okay, let's have here another postulate. Hilbert's parallel postulate. For every line L, for every external point P, there exists at most one line M such that P lies on M, and M is parallel with L. Another theorem of this, theorem 6.8.3, each of the following statements is equivalent to the Euclidean parallel postulates. Okay, so let's have here. Number 1, the Proclus axiom. If the line L and a line L prime are parallel lines and T is not equal to L, is a line such that T intersects L, then T also intersects at L, line L prime. Another one, if the line L and line L prime are parallel lines and T is a transversal such that T is perpendicular with L, then T is also perpendicular with L. Next, the third one, if the line L, line M, line N, and line K are lines such that K is parallel with L, then N is perpendicular with K and N is perpendicular also with L, then either M is equal to N or M is parallel with N. Okay? The fourth one of this theorem is the transitivity of parallelism. If the line L is a parallel to M and M is parallel to N, then either L is equal to N or L is parallel with N. So let's proceed now. Angle sum postulate. So if triangle ABC is a triangle, then the phi of triangle ABC is equal to 180 degrees. Another theorem, 6.8.4. The Euclidean parallel postulate is equivalent to the angle sum postulate. So, lemma 6.8.5. Suppose that the line segment PQ is a segment and Q prime is a point such that the angle PQQ prime is a right angle. For every element greater than 0, there exists a point P on the ray QQ prime such that the mu of the angle PTQ is less than the element degree. Okay? So let's have here the proof. We need to let that the line segment PQ be a segment and let Q prime be a point such that the angle PQQ prime is a right angle. That will be our hypothesis. Let the element is greater than 0 be given. So let's have here the hypothesis. Choose a point P prime on the same side of line segment PQ as Q prime, such that the line segment P prime is perpendicular with line segment PQ. Observe that every point P on line segment Q prime is in the interior of angle P prime. So that will be the definition of interior. Choose a sequence of points T sub 1, T sub 2, and so on and so forth until Q prime as follows. So let's have here the figure. Okay, so let's have here. Let's have here a PQ, line segment PQ, and Q prime be a point such that the angle PQQ prime there, here's the Q prime. Okay, so that element is greater than 0, be given. So we need to choose the line segment P prime, okay, on the same side of PQ, and as Q prime, there as Q prime, such that the PP prime is perpendicular to the PQ. Observe also that every point in T, okay, on QQ prime, this one, is in the interior of this angle QPP prime. So that will be the definition. So let's have here T sub 1, T sub 2, and T sub 3. You can now have these 3 triangles. Okay? Now, so first choose the T sub 1 such that PQ is congruent with line segment QT sub 1. Then choose T sub 2 such that the line segment PT sub 1 is congruent with line segment T sub 1, T sub 2. Inductively, choose T sub n such that T sub n minus 1 is between Q and T sub n, and such that the line segment PT and PT sub n minus 1 is congruent with the line segment T sub n minus 1, T sub n. So points with those properties can be chosen using the ruler postulate. Okay? So now, the angle QT sub NP is congruent with angle T sub n minus 1 PT sub n for every n as the isosceles triangle theorem. Okay? On the figure kanina. Okay, this one. Okay? So, for each n, part 4 of the Protractor postulate gives here that the mu angle QPT sub 1 plus the mu angle T sub 1 PT sub 2 plus and so on and so forth mu angle T sub n minus 1 PT sub n is equal to mu of the angle QPT sub n is less than mu of angle QPT prime is equal to 90 degree. Okay, so as you can see. Now, suppose that the mu angle T sub I minus 1 PT sub I is greater than or equal to the element for every I. That would be the RAAA hypothesis. By the Archimedean property of real numbers, that is the action is 0.3.4. There is an n for which that n element is greater than np. It follows also that the mu angle QPT sub 1 plus the mu angle T sub 1 PT sub 2 plus so on and so forth plus the mu angle T sub n minus 1 PT sub n is greater than or equal to the n element degree is greater than 90 degree. Okay? So, this contradicts the earlier computation. Hence, we must reject the RAA hypothesis and conclude that there exists an I such that the mu angle T sub I minus 1 PT sub I is less than element degree. So, therefore, that the mu angle QT sub I P is less than element degree, and so T is equal to T sub I satisfy the conclusion of the lemma. Okay, that's all. Thank you.